Okay, gonna call to order this special meeting of the Board of Equalization. Today is Monday, June 3rd, 2024. It is 9:30. There was a proper posting of this meeting on May 29th. And we have a full house. Mr. Town.
Present.
Ms. Sellers.
Present.
And Ms. Thompson. So today, we have 7 items on the agenda. You just have one?
I just have one.
Have you been in front of us before?
I have not.
Have you?
Not in physical form. Did it on the phone.
Okay. So here's how this goes. So you disagree with the assessor, so we're gonna hear from you. Then we'll hear from the assessor. But we give you the last word. We don't decide today. We meet, this week we're gonna meet on Wednesday. And we'll make our decision, and then you'll get a decision by mail. And perhaps, are you here in Oklahoma City?
No, I'm down in Texas.
Where are you?
I'm in Oklahoma City.
Okay, you'll probably get it Friday. I don't know when you'll get it. I don't know.
When it gets there.
When it gets there. Okay, so item 1 on the agenda is BOE 494 at 3317 Southwest 74th. It's commercial. The account number is R143611 Okay, so these are some apartments, and my paperwork indicates that you want the proper valuation to be $3,500,000. The assessor is, this year and last year has been at $4,512,000. Now I have this written down. You're gonna have to explain it to me because there were 2 different figures. Did you buy this in 21 for $5,350,000?
Do y'all have documentation on that sale?
Just what was filed through doc stamps, yes.
Okay.
Did I say that correctly, Steve?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
$5,350,000.
Okay. Tell us why you think the valuation should be $3,500,000.
Yeah. So a little bit of background. Obviously, the valuation last year was $4,512,000. That was reduced from a notice value of $5,431,000. That was done during an informal and a settlement. And what drove that settlement was the what I refer to as the trailing 12 profit and loss statement, but it's essentially just the income statement for the complex for the year 2022.
Okay.
So 2022 was what was relied on to calculate the value for that 2023 settlement when we got from the 5.4 down to the 4.5.
Okay.
So when you look at this trailing 12 from 2022 and you compare it to the trailing 12 that we were given by the property owners for 2023,
Okay.
the income performance, the financial performance of the complex has drastically decreased. The year ending net income for 2022 that caused that informal settlement was $21,565 for 2022.
Okay.
In comparison, the 2023 net income of the property was negative $906,105. I had a brief email conversation with the assessor's office where they essentially gave me a little bit of color and reasoning behind why they decided not to grant any further reductions at the informal level this year. And what I understand is they have been able to identify some expenses that was in this income statement that
Disallowed.
Yeah, they disallowed. Now, I wasn't able to get a workup from the assessor's office because the expenses were too high for them to have been able to do an income, is what I understand. So I've looked through the income statement and I saw a couple of items that stood out to me as disallowable. One of them was the depreciation expense. The depreciation expense was almost it was $490,000 incurred in December of 2023. So if I back that out, it takes the negative 906,000
Mhm.
down to a negative 500,000.
Okay.
But I've poured through this. The assessor's office didn't give me much in the way of identifying these expenses because I wanted to go back through and see, okay, yeah, that makes sense. This makes sense. They called them stabilization costs that were allocated through the utility, the payroll, and the maintenance. And again, I was looking through and I couldn't find anything. When I run this through my income model, the valuation comes out to a big negative number because the property is losing money. And theoretically,
Because of occupancy deficiencies or because of the condition of the apartment?
I believe it's a little bit of both. So this is low income housing, so they're charging they're asking about $1 per square foot in rent, and it's an older building, so the
But did
upkeep
you
is going up.
receive any subsidies?
They did receive, I think, 750,000 in intangible tax credits,
Okay.
and I believe that sale of that 5 million also included a vacant parcel of land that was next to it, and that's under a separate account that we're not under
Okay.
protest right now.
Okay.
And so when I run, like I said, when I run these numbers through an income statement or through an income model, it comes out to a negative value, and I'm not really sure what to do
With that.
with that exactly. And it sounds like the assessor's office was running into similar issues. And what I was really, that 35 or that 3,500,000 was basically something that it was, first off, it was like an even number. And I figured, well, if we had a low income statement from 2022 that resulted in approximately $1 million reduction, and we have another significantly worse income statement for 2023, I figure another somewhat $1 million reduction. But obviously, finding the exact number is going to be, in my case, it's a challenge.
What's your
So-
vacancy rate
I
in
didn't
December?
bring that with me.
But that's not impacting you. Well,
Um,
it ought to be. I mean, if your income is down, do you know why?
I think it's expenses were up.
Oh, okay.
I actually did supply the trailing 12 for 2022 and 2023 for comparison.
Okay.
So income appears to be up a tad. Gross rent income, it's up 783 versus 687 last year.
Okay.
Total utility expenses, they're at 54,000 this year. They were at 73,000 last year. Administrative expenses were about the same. Management fees were about the same. Operating and maintenance expenses were up. And construction loan interest. So they're paying a lot in their construction loan financing, and they're not able to. It looks like they're not able to cash flow their loan. So we may be having some more conversations about this one coming up in the next couple of years.
Okay. Are you saying that you don't think 22 valuation was at all affected by the sale, and you think not because that sale included a different piece of property not included in this one?
I think so. If you look at the 2022 valuation, it was 5,337,000. I think that's pretty close to what was on right there on the sale.
Yeah.
So I think the value was adjusted to close to the sale price in 2022 after the sale went
Right.
through, and then after the purchase,
Right.
that's when income started. I think ultimately they didn't anticipate the performance when they made the sale. Or when they made the purchase.
But you did make a statement that the purchase price included some land next door or something that was under a different
Property ID.
property ID?
Mm-hmm. So if you allocate that out, they have, I believe the assessor's office currently has a value of $145,000
On that land.
on that land now. I'm not sure. I haven't seen the sale documents to see what the value of the land was with respect to the complex.
What is it? Is it a parking lot?
It's just vacant land.
Oh, okay. So I can see this, if I'm going down I-240 South, I'll see this complex,
You should.
north side, south side,
North side.
north side, okay. Okay, let's hear from the assessor.
Okay, so there it is. It's right there on the north side of OCCC. See? Okay, so first thing I want to bring up is when we're looking at an income statement that's provided, we stop at the net operating income for the property. We do not get down when we start talking about debt service, financial expenses, and other expenses. Those are accounting principles. They're not part of the appraisal process. So those aren't even part of our analysis.
Okay.
I will say is that sometime during the year they provided to us a questionnaire answering for the period from August of 22 to July of 23, showing the performance of the property. And apparently it is a Section 8 property that does have a HAP contract included that at that point in time was about $585,000 worth of income added to the property. That
Are they on a July 1 fiscal year? Is that why you did that the way you?
well, I was going to say is that was provided to us, so I was looking at that, and then for the informal, I did get a copy of the 2023 to back it up.
Okay.
But and I'll go to that one right now. So they did look at it. And it does have the HAP contract in it, which at this point in time is $609,000 of income through the HAP contract, which I believe is rent subsidy. I believe is this a Section 8 property?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So that was $609,000 in subsidies, $226,000 actual rent payments from the tenants.
200 how much?
I'm sorry, $226,150. I did go back through and look at the income on it to see if I could see anything that stood out from what the original one of our staff looked at, and I did not see a workup from them, but I did make one, and I can see where the income is lower. But I also see what they did on their note, saying that what they did last year was actually look at the income and look at comparable sales, and that's why they made no adjustment to it, because there had already been an adjustment, including the fact that they had deducted the land value out of the sale.
When you see diminution in income, do you mean diminution in rent from tenants?
I'm sorry, say again.
As opposed to the diminution in income, was that solely the rent from the tenants, or was that the rent and the subsidy? Because the subsidies sound like it went up. It was 500 something the year before, and the 600 to 9,000 you just said.
Yes, the rent income from the tenants went up slightly. I'm sorry, the rent from the tenants actually came down a little bit, and then the subsidy actually came up. The overall income did come up a little bit, about $25,000, but the expenses are in a property this old. sometimes you are going to have those kind of deferred maintenance issues and that type of thing.
Right.
And I did go through there and look at it, and even with even taking out the unallowable expenses,
Yes.
I still came up with a negative number. And so I did stabilize it at about, and I stabilized it at 65%.
Okay.
And that still came out to about $3.1 million on the income. So looking at that, the sales, I did look at at sales, pardon me, that still indicated a higher per unit value.
What is that value?
Because I was gonna say, he's better off with you doing income.
Reason why I'm hesitant in this is that he did not get a copy of this, and I don't want to add any additional information. So,
Okay, so are you disagreeing with his statement that the real discrepancy is what you allowable expenses?
Well, it sounds like even with the disallowable, the income is still
Yeah, he saw it
struggling.
as negative, so I'm curious. if
yes,
that changes your
I am
evaluation.
agreeing that even with the allowable expenses and the rework of it, I was coming up with a negative number. So I did stabilize it at 65% on the expenses, which put it at 3.1. I will just say is that even if I looked at last year's sales,
Yes.
they would still support this. I think it's on at $47,000 per unit at 96 units is what I'm showing.
Do you show a vacancy rate?
The vacancy rate's only about 5%.
Okay.
Now, that's occupancy. Now you got some bad debt loss to
Yeah,
add on to that.
Yeah, you
too.
do see a little bit of that.
So when you just look at physical occupancy, yes, you're at that. But the other part of the equation, as far as what we're looking at, is that it is a Section 8 and there are subsidies being paid out.
Okay.
Even, and I'll go back and say, even with that, there's an issue with the income.
So your valuation is based on $350,000 or $3.5 million in the income model and comparables valuation.
Based on what was done this year, they were actually looking at last year's performance. This year, I say the income has dropped some, but they did. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Well, I was just gonna ask, does that mean, are you suggesting that you're gonna lower your price, your value then, or based off of that income being a negative number?
It probably would be a little bit more in line to drop it down to about 4.3 million.
That's not a refreshing. Okay. So you're gonna get the last word. He's now down to 4.3. You hold it at 3.5? Sorry.
I'm sorry. I meant to mention this earlier. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No
But
worries.
what when we got our appeal
The informal?
at the informal,
Yes.
it listed $280,000.
Yeah, and that's on me. Part
Okay,
of that is inexperience, and it was just not really understanding, I guess, how the course of business goes. So when I did my informal, here's what he's referring to. It's because my income was coming into a negative, and all I had left was just
Okay,
the
yeah,
cost.
and I get that.
And so I just threw the cost number on there without thinking, I should have put the 3.5 on here for something.
I knew that
comparable.
because, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
just double
You
check.
have the right to give us a new value in this field,
Right.
as the assessor has the right to lower it.
Okay.
We'll raise it.
Yeah, so I did a cost approach on this because that's all I had, and it came out to 280,000. And I was like, well, that's we're not asking for 200. So I apologize for that.
No, that's okay.
But where we're at is 3.5 million versus 4.3.
Could we? Like I said, okay. So their income model is at 3.1, and they did a sales workup. And do you have the final number from the sales workup? I mean, I didn't get a copy of it. But
Well, and that's what I say is that typically the board does not accept additional information, and I
That's
don't
the
want to
other part.
spring, so I don't like
Okay.
to spring that in.
We're only gonna appeal it, so we can only look at
Okay.
information given during the hearing, during the formal hearing.
Okay, so if their income is coming up to a 3.1 after they have cleaned up, we'll say cleaned up the income statement, and I think 3.5. You know, I don't need to come down to 3.1 or anything like that. I mean, I think 3.5 would, you know, good faith.
Yeah, I need to understand, Steve, the difference between I have 3.5 for income. But anyway, the difference between that and your 4.3, how are we coming up with those two?
I'm still relying on the fact what they talked about last year with the sales that they looked at last year.
Okay. And because you held firm on the 4.5 for 2 years.
Well, yes,
Yeah,
that's-
right, yeah. So it's a matter of coming down, okay. Okay. You got the last word.
I just want to thank everybody, and hopefully the rain doesn't leave me stranded up here. And I appreciate everybody's
Did you
time.
fly?
I drove.
Oh, yeah,
I-
okay, you can make it.
Yeah, well, and this is off the record, it's only 3 hours, so I actually spend more time flying than if I just get in the car and drive.
We feel
So,
the same way.
Love
when we go
it.
there.
I'm driving up from DFW.
Oh, I'm gonna say.
I don't still live in Lubbock.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All righty, well, you'll hear from us however fast the mail travels beyond Wednesday.
Well, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the efforts on the assessor's office. My name's Sam, by the way.
Steve Storm,
Nice to
sorry, I
meet you,
meant to
Steve.
introduce.
Oh, it's all good. You guys have my contact information. If you guys need anything, same as you, I believe you should have mine.
Yes, sir.
So
I want crap on you since you like my homes.
I need him to win about 5 more Super Bowls so we can stop him about Tom Brady.
Oh, ain't that the truth? Okay.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I
Okay,
appreciate it.
so I'm gonna close the hearing on
Thank you.
494. And item 2 on the agenda is BOE number 483. Do you have all the rest of this? Yes.
I'm it.
Is this the one where we got unplatted land and no addresses and?
Mr. Craig?
Yeah, thank
Steve
you.
Storm.
Yeah, pleasure to meet you in person.
Okay, now, let me say this. I can tell by the way, when I went through the paperwork, that your concept is probably a value. But because there are different identifiers, we have to take them one at a time.
I understand.
So we may get redundant here, but we gotta do it one at a time.
I get it. I'll explain when we get into
Okay.
it. There's not a great way to do it in this case, and when you look at the property, I think you'll understand.
Right. I was trying to recognize it from the pictures. I looked at the assessor's website. Okay, so this is BOE number 483, unplatted land, roll number 1333 42 600. And you're at, I don't know, because we got 3,200,000 for all of this, but
So this would be 0600.
yeah, and the assessor has it at 42,030.
You bet.
And I don't know, this cute was a $4 difference, but it's basically been 42,000 for 3 years.
May I speak?
Sure.
I'm just gonna say, can we pull this up on the aerial? This might help with this whole thing.
Yeah.
Because, okay, so Mr. Cravens, would you please tell us?
You bet. So all 6 of the items are essentially part of a contiguous property that
Oh,
we're
sure.
purchasing, right? So 0600, which is on the south side of 31st Street, you've got the cursor over it. That's what we're talking about now.
Yes.
And that's essentially just a vacant, unused parking lot. It's actually obstructed by an oil well, but we could use the lot if we wanted to. We can't do anything with it.
Is it paved?
It is paved-ish.
Okay.
There's your area.
Bad repair?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you go to the north side of the street, beginning over there on 317, keep going east, down 31st, it's up. So this begins where the property we purchased is, and it goes all the way over to Walnut. So we're going to talk about each of these tracks, which happen to be separately parcel lots, but it's one property, which is a challenge.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was a 1031 exchange.
It was a 1031 exchange, and I'm happy to explain that. So we had a building in Bethany. It was an office building. An occupant of that building came to us and said, I want to buy it. And we said, okay. And he said, the problem is I need to close quickly. I said, understand. So we went ahead and entered it. There was a relationship that I had with a business who ultimately was able to occupy part of this building. So when we made that transaction, we went ahead and 1031 into this, but we had a very short timeline. I don't know what the familiarity is, but you've essentially got 45 days to identify and 180 days to close, but you can only close on something you've identified. So we had to quickly put this under contract and just try to get through it. So we didn't, because we had essentially a zero basis in our old property. They'd owned it forever. Was a part of the deal. Yep.
Okay, so
Okay.
what do you think this, BOE number 483,
I allocated 30,000 to it.
okay, that's what I'm keeping out.
Yes, ma'am.
And how did you arrive at that?
I took the purchase price
Yes.
of 3.5 million, attributed the bulk of it to the structured improvement parcels, took what was left and the assessed value that was provided to me by the assessor's office, and then delineated what I thought would be a fair value based on the total purchase price, the total consideration paid, plus a little diminution in value, which I'll explain.
Steve, tell me how you got 42,000. There's $30, and then last year and the year before it was 42,034. I don't know how we got that $4.
I think all they did was just allow some extra depreciation on the paving.
Okay.
This is a 15,000 square foot lot.
Yes.
You can see that.
Or yes.
Did you? Yeah, you did the same thing he did.
It looks like it. Yes.
But how did you come up with 42,000? Because it's been that way forever.
No, we dropped it from 52,000 to 42,000.
This year. Well, when I went to the website, I have 3 years in a row, 42,030 this year, 42,034 the 2 previous years. Did I look at the wrong number?
The 23 tax roll. 42. And that may be what the deal was, is that maybe there was I don't know that. Is there a note on there, Michael? Anywhere? I'll have to go with it. Okay.
I'm looking at it, it looks like 5 years in a row.
Yeah.
42,034.
Yeah, so I don't know why there was showing up an increase of 52,000 on the NOV, then going to 42.
Well, did you basically do the same thing he did? How did you? I just got to know how you. Now we got a difference between 42 and 30. Did you guys do the same thing he did? Take the gross of the 3 million plus and parcel it out. And this had no improvements on it, so it's going to be on the low end.
Go to the 24 note. Let's see what he says here. Lower value based on a few comps, and they talk to property value. That they talked to Scott Cravens. So apparently they did look at the value overall and then allocate it out.
Okay.
To some degree.
Since you brought up that point, can I interject something that again is more to
Can you?
May I? May I?
Yes.
So when we got the notice of assessed value change,
This year?
yes, ma'am. The first notice of assessed value was in excess of $6 million.
Oh.
I sincerely thought it was a mistake.
Right.
So I reached out and I said, hey, look, I have an appraisal. It was a purchase. It's arm's length. I'll send you everything. I provided all that. They came back, and the totality of what they've assessed, including this parcel, is still in excess of I think it's 4.4 million.
Okay.
Which is why we're sitting here.
Okay.
What was the date of the sale? What day did you buy it?
March of 23.
Yeah, I have the totality at 4.498.
Yes, sir. That's 4.4 change.
Okay. I'm going to close. I know we're going to do this over and over, but I'm going to close 483, and I'm going to go to 484, number R0, 36, 19, 1065. You got the same valuation.
Yes, ma'am.
The assessor has 248,948.
Yes, ma'am.
Since same valuation I've got here since 2020. What pull this one? Does this one have a building on it?
No, ma'am. I'll show you. As soon as he pulls it up, I actually wrote down what's on it so I could make sure I could point out to you each of the, from an aerial. I can. Would you mind going to the aerial?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. There you go. So
Which one
this
is this?
is the far western lot, that one right there.
Okay.
And so what I did to attribute an allocation of the purchase price is I put 180,000 on this. This is just, again, land. There are no structured improvements here of any kind other than the parking lot.
Is the pavement in any better shape on this?
The pavement is in better shape on a relative basis, and it is being utilized by the tenant who occupies the west half of the building.
Okay.
So,
How many square feet is it?
38,929.
thank you.
88,929?
38,929 is what I have.
I'm sorry, say it again?
38,929. 38,900.
Got it, thank you.
Okay, you're at 180. Okay, Steve, do you know how? Well, there's a big difference here. 248,948 consistently through the years. Did you, was I correct? The acquisition was 2021?
No, man, it's 2023, March of 23. It was all purchased at once. It was a single transaction.
For 3.5 million.
Yes, ma'am.
March of 23.
Steve, that's your understanding as well, right? That's the assessor's understanding. It was purchased in March of 23 for 3.5 million. There's no dispute there.
Go to, account details. That's what the doc stamps say right there, yes.
How did you guys come up with 248,000 for this one? Well, we're actually almost 249,000.
It would still, I don't think that the land rate changed. I think it may have been just a depreciation in the paving. And then when it came in and appealed the value, just put it back down about where it was. This
is not affected by the sale.
Well, it's part of it.
He dropped it from 251. Assessor originally asked 251.
What year?
This year. They originally asked 251, 484, and they dropped it back to what it's been the last 4 years.
Yes.
Well, was it or was it not affected by the sale?
What apparently it did go up in value a little bit, but when they came in and appealed the value, they just dropped the value back to the previous amount.
Okay, but did it go up because of comp sales?
It probably went up for a depreciation thing on the cost approach. I don't have a good answer for that.
Okay.
It's not like we had done anything in that area for any kind of land increases or anything.
Okay, because the reason why I was asking that, Trish, I remember at some point on 483, I thought he said they did compensate, land compensate. No.
No, I did not.
I didn't hear that, okay.
But you guys didn't take the sale price into consideration when you did the valuation this year? The 3.5 million in March of 23?
I don't know that there was an increase in the value of the main buildings. That part I don't know yet. I don't know yet.
Oh, no, we didn't do that, okay.
So we have 2 parcels now with no buildings, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
There's a third as well. There'll be one more.
Could I get your value again?
Yes, sir. Value on 065.
180.
I have 180.
Okay.
And again, Mr. Town, all I'm doing is taking, by admission, all I'm doing is taking the purchase price and allocating it based on what I think is reasonable.
Right.
Where the assessor was before and to get to the valuation.
And did you Did that math come up to a total of 3.5, or did you add anything for appreciation?
It's 3.2, total value is 3.2.
That's why I had 3.2.
Yes, ma'am. Just to clarify, that was and I'll explain that when we get to the two that are affected by the,
Sale.
yeah,
Okay.
there's a,
Okay, so I'm gonna close BOE 484, and we're gonna go to BOE 485, and this one has an address, 317 Northeast 31st.
now we're cooking.
Number R, 036 19 1090.
An
And once
address.
again, I had the 3.2, but for the assessor, I have 2,135,750, and the year before 1,191,953. So
So this is for the far east half, that's correct, your cursor's on it, is what this lot is. I attributed 1.6 million of my proposed 3.2 valuation to this portion of the property.
okay,
This piece, being constructed improvements, there's a couple other things I want to point out. One, and I'm happy to give you guys copies of this, the appraisal report from when the property was purchased overall. I have the comps I was provided from the assessor, which I'll address in a minute. And then last but not least, one of the things that happened, so we were told at the outset that the roof of the building was in functional condition. It turns out that is not the case.
is it flat?
It is a flat roof.
I went by there.
If you look at it on an aerial,
Right.
okay, and we recognize that. We had a very condensed due diligence time frame.
Mm-hmm.
We knew that it was a risk we might be taking, but we thought, well, we can get some years out of it and we'll figure it out. The roof, immediately we figured out that there maybe wasn't some things that were shared. And so we've had to go about breaking the roof into 9 sections. We're making extensive repairs section by section, but I have a letter from Mid-America Roofing stipulating that the roof is essentially in completely deficient condition and really needs to be replaced. The cost of that was estimated to me to be about $350,000. So I took $300,000 off of the purchase price. That's how
we got to the
Yes, ma'am.
10,
Yes, ma'am.
5.
I just want to clarify how I got there.
Yeah.
But it is extensive, it is ongoing. We've done one section, they're in the process of trying to do the second one if it won't rain. So that's what's going on with it. But so I have the appraisal, which is at 3.5 million. I have the letter on the roof. Steve, you?
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. And then the last thing I want to address, because there were provided comps, I just want to point out to members, none of these comps are in the Santa Fe Industrial District, none of them. They're not representative in almost any way of the property at hand. So I did not receive this comp list initially. It came with, I asked what comps they were using because I've been involved with other transactions over here that have occurred in some cases in a very similar time frame to some of the comps that were provided, which are not on this list.
In the area.
In the area, not only in the area on the same street, and then a block to the north. I've been involved in 3 transactions over here. So
I'm
in,
just close by that.
In 2023 or
and
prior.
22, yep, 22 and 23. And in all those cases, the buildings transacted, very similar price point to this one, about $50 to $60 a foot based on complexities with the structure. So are they brick, are they metal? What equipment is being included in a transaction in terms of
And
installed
flat
frames?
roofs.
There's a lot of factors, but those do not appear in the comp list that I was given to establish what they were using as market sales for the 4.4 million or whatever it was.
Did you provide those in the informal, those other comps?
No, and I was not provided these in the informal. I only got these with the notice from the notice of the hearing.
Okay, so, but they're at 2,135,750.
Correct.
The original value is 3.4, which was
Yeah.
attributed just to this piece,
Oh, okay.
and they reduced it after the informal hearing to 2.1, and I'm attributing 1.6 of the 3.2.
Basically, because you don't like their comps.
I don't like their comps. I have an appraisal to the contrary, and I have a third-party transaction arm's length that we bought the property at $3.5 million.
Okay, so your appraisal is for all of that.
It's for all of it, every bit of it.
Did the appraisal piece it out like you did?
No,
Okay.
no, because again, from a technical standpoint, county related, of course that matters.
Right.
From a buyer and seller and an appraiser and a bank, nobody cares.
Okay.
What's being bought, what's being sold.
Yeah, that whole area over there is industrial.
When you mentioned that your comps were $50 to $60 range, when I look at the assessor's valuation at 2.135, it comes out to 45.65.
Yeah, and that's, but
Pretty lower than the comps.
sure, but again, there's other considerations always with these properties on the land and the totality and those other things, which is why you can't get to a, like, what is a hard number for what a value is in the Santa Fe Industrial District for a building that's of this age, this vintage, this ceiling height, all those sorts of things. So when we looked at the value we were going to be paying for this building, I used my experience in the area of kind of knowing, hey, we'd be okay here if we paid this for the totality given the land and so forth.
You rent this out
Yes,
to different businesses?
yes, ma'am. There are 2 occupants of the building.
100% occupied.
It's 100% occupied, and it was at appraisal. It was at closing. We brought the tenant to the transaction, but they were placed in the property before we closed.
It was empty?
Half of the building was empty.
Oh, okay.
It had been occupied by the state for a long time.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was
Well,
the-
I mean, I drove by.
Was the appraisal provided during the informal as well, or no?
I gave them information about the appraisal, told them about it. So
But was that during the informal or after the?
it was during the informal that I told them that I had an appraisal for that price.
Oh, you said you had an appraisal.
I have an appraisal.
It wasn't necessarily provided.
Okay, we'll hear from you, assessor.
That, yes, one thing we did know, apparently there was an appraisal we were not privy to. Also, I understand that we asked for lease information. It was denied to us. I understand there are grow houses. It is a grow house in the property.
Part of the property is occupied by yes.
Okay, so we've made an attempt this past year to start gathering up those grow house leases. Well, any leases, but we are also giving some more credence to trying to find out about these because they're so new. So that probably plays into where we ended up with at this thing. I think our point was that as a whole, we didn't have any of the income information at that time, so we don't know what the appraisal actually said in regards to all of that. Maybe they were in place. We don't know for sure. So I think part of this is that we did the best we can. We did the best we could with what we thought was good information at the point in time. And as Mr. Craven says, now he's finding out after the fact that he's got a bad roof, which I understand how that goes too.
Steve, was the 2.1 million?
Well, is this the building with the bad roof?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yes. There's
Was the 2.1 million
half of it.
bad roof considered in that you're lowering of it from 3.4 to 2.1?
I'm going to believe that it was partially part of the reason for the reduction. I don't know. I'm trying to look at any of the other ones that included the building, and the other part that looks like it had the building on it.
But you didn't reduce this one to what it was last year like you did the other 2.
Probably because the other 2 were just parking lots, and those are depreciated out pretty substantially, and the land value is probably low for that matter.
I had a note on this one that the assessor lowered the HVAC to medium.
In my previous comment regarding HVAC for grow houses, we've made a concerted effort to look at the additional electricity and HVAC that's having to go into those types of properties. We had a class with OTC middle of about a year ago, where they were discussing what they have been finding out and researching over the past couple of years around the state. And so we were looking at adjusting the way we're looking at these types of buildings that have had this stuff added to
Added
the
to
property. Some of which we had caught before, some of which we had not. So we're making a concerted effort again to find these things and account for them.
So you're saying that increases the value?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
substantial,
HVAC,
And big becomes a
electrical,
fixture.
yes,
fire
That's
suppression
considered a
systems.
fixture.
yes.
It is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't rent that
It-
out.
Once the HVAC is installed, it's a
Right.
fixture of the property.
Now, may I speak to that? Is that in some of the stuff we're learning is that we have had several people come to us and say, well, I have the leases that state that the
Who has to
HVAC, after they move out or whatever, they are responsible to take this out. And that the owner of the building says, I do not own those fixtures. It's in the lease. And so we have been provided with several leases, and we are taking, if there's any added HVAC and electricity, we're turning it over to a personal property and assigning it to the renter.
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm wondering how you, well, I had a case where me and the federal judge and I drove up to Hooker. And, because somebody had imported a great big bar and put it in from France or, I mean, from Greece or somewhere. I'm amazed that that would not be considered a fixture.
I agree.
It's just contractual between the parties. So the parties can say, if the tenant's going to install it, that they're going to deem that a trade fixture as opposed to a fixture of the
Right, right.
land. In which case, the lease can delineate that upon termination of the lease, trade fixtures can be removed.
Is that in your lease?
No, it is a fixture of the property.
Oh.
And all of the improvements, just for the record, were already in place at the time
Okay.
that
I
we
was gonna
purchased it,
say,
and nothing has been changed in 23 or currently
who's that?
from what was there when we agreed to pay $3.5 million for the whole thing.
Okay.
But that is true, that you can delineate that between parties in an agreement.
Okay, so at this moment, you're at 1.6 and the assessor's at 2.3.
2.1.
2.135, yeah, just, okay. Okay, I'm gonna close the hearing on 485 and go to item 5 on the agenda, which is BOE 486. It has a street address of 313 Northeast 31st, ID number RO 36191075. Now, what part of the 3,000,002 did you give this bill? This one?
90,000, so it's right there, stop right there.
And
So-
the assessor is at 98,047.
And
Okay.
this is, okay, so, I mean, again, here's the science behind this, if you can see that just a little bit for me. So, this lot there's no buildings in it, it's just a parcel that's in between two buildings. And it is about half the size of the other lot that I placed 180 on.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't ask. If the condition of the pavement on 485 is okay.
485 is almost all building. There's a small truck, basically court, yeah, but that's it, otherwise it's all building.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
And
What's
this
this,
one?
sorry, what's the square feet on this one?
23,205 of land.
Those are trees I saw. Did I see trees?
I don't think so.
No, I don't know.
I don't think so. It was an area. Well, see, okay, those are cars. Sorry.
That's okay. It's that area there's a, when you look at it here, you can't see the lines, but where that last row of
Yeah.
cars is kind of where the edge of the property is,
Yeah.
and then it goes all the way over to not quite where that outbuilding is, which
Right.
is just a wash building, by the way.
Okay. See, that looks like trees on the right hand side.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so the assessor's got this at 98,047. It's gonna be the same rationale, Steve. Just look at
Yes,
the
ma'am.
square footage. Okay. I don't think there's anything else to be said about that one. It's on the closed BOE. I know you guys got questions.
What was the owner's value?
90.
Thank you.
Okay. You gonna move it all off your 98? You move it up at all off your 90? No. Okay. So to close BOE 486 and go to number 6 on the agenda, which is BOE 487, street address 309 Northeast 31st, ID number RO 36191070. Now, what part of the 3.2 did you give this one?
I put 200,000 on it.
Okay, and the assessor is at 297,000. And last year and the year before that, it was 211,164. Is there a building on this one?
Yes, ma'am, there is. So if you look at would you mind showing her the lot, just so she can see how it orients
With the lot lines.
with the lot lines, yeah, sorry. There we go. So this is that 309 right there with the outbuilding, right? No, to the right there. Oop, yep, that one. So you can see it's that what that building is a wash building. That's all it is, basically. It's a concrete floor. They bring the trucks in cars and they can wash them. The state's used it. There's, actually click back to that one more picture to the left, I'm sorry. Right there's a little door. You see the walk-through door to the left right there? That walk-through door, you walk into a little office waiting area thing. There's not much there. The rest of it is you pull in, you wash the truck, you pull out.
Is it hand washing? It's not automated washing?
No, it's hand washing. There's just a big channel drain in the floor, is what that is. So, and then there's a little bit of parking area associated to the west side of this lot too that makes up part of this parcel.
Now, there's almost $100,000 difference on this one. So, Steve, can you talk about 297 versus 200?
May I ask a
And you're
question
up from
first?
211. Sure.
The wash equipment, heavy duty wash, high capacity water, hot water.
There's nothing there outside of hoses. So anything the tenant brought in would have been what they were using. There was no infrastructure for that. No, it's just the ability to do it is there. It's like the water hookups are there, the floor drain is there, all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shade.
Hey, it was the state. It was the state's building. And that's good. It should be cheap, right? It's your tax dollars. So.
Okay, Steve.
So, it looks to me like they just pulled some sales comps of other industrial buildings and felt like the value that they came up with was reasonable compared to the subject. But you're saying is this just, I don't have any interior pictures, so I don't know what it looks like on the inside, but I'm guessing it's just shell space pretty much.
If you look at those overhead doors that are all lined up, you open those doors and it's just one open space. It's a metal building. There's a concrete floor. The channel drains through the center.
Have any heat in there?
No. There might be
Unit heaters if there's.
some kind, yeah, but I don't recall there even being a unit heater.
This is where it freezing in. Okay. Either one of you got anything?
I just wanted to look at one last thing, please. Okay, so 6,600 square foot building is what we're showing on.
6,600. Okay.
So the building's only on for $45 a square foot, land and building at this rate.
Okay. Then I take it the concrete's good.
Similar condition.
Similar to everything else that's out there, yes. So, and I'm sure that's what they were looking at, is that overall $45 a square foot for the building.
Okay.
Even if it's shell building is with the land and the paving, does not seem unreasonable. Okay. That's all I have.
Any questions? Okay, gonna close 487, and the last one is BOE 488 street address. Let me see what this is. Yep. So we had, no, this one is 317 Northeast 31st again. How come this has the
This is
same?
Unit A, the other one is
Oh, that's
Unit
right,
B.
Unit A.
Yeah.
Okay, so RO 36 19 1085, and the assessor has this at 1,676,356, up from 2 years consecutive of 921,245. What did you apportion to this one?
1.1 is what was left of this. And if you could, would you mind click into the arrow again just so I can make sure. Okay, so what this is, Ms. Thompson, this parcel is the west half of the building. So the building, there's no gap in the building. It's a single building, but it just happens to be on two parcels. We talked about the east half earlier. This is simply the west half of the building.
Might I ask a question?
Huh?
May I ask a question?
Oh, sure.
So is there a common wall between the two? Or
There's a
is it
demising wall.
So it is an actual dividing wall, two actual separate buildings.
Yeah,
right there.
there's a demising wall there, but I mean, it's
But the
Oh,
exterior. is
incorrect. It's one building. It's a firewall is what it amounts to.
I just didn't know if
Yeah.
it was straight across, wide open, or anything
There's
like that.
It's a block wall that goes from the floor to the deck.
Okay, so you could have two separate buildings or two separate tenants in there. No. What's the word I'm looking for?
Can they share utilities?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I do believe, in fact, I'm almost certain this building's on one water meter. This whole property is on one water meter. And we just delineated between the two sides, portion to their square footage.
And there's
Is the wall the property line?
I'm assuming that it is.
It appears that way, and that was the reason for my question.
and there's a grow in one of these.
On the east half. The
On the
lot we
same
talked
water
about.
meter, I would hate to be the other person.
Well, to be fair, they're a towing company and have a wash bay.
Okay.
The Milnot, the brand of milk, it's in Seneca, Missouri, and part of the building is in Oklahoma, and part of the building is in Missouri.
Oh,
Right
really?
on the state, yeah, right on the state line, the whole big old thing.
Huh.
So I've seen that.
But that's what what you're seeing there.
How did that happen? The city permitted that?
Yeah, so we've seen that.
Building permit on one big building, two different lots, especially in these older areas.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we got a big difference in price here, 1.67, almost 1.7 and 1.1. Do you know how we arrived at this 1.1, 1.60?
I'm going to guess that it did have something to do with the sale. I'm looking to see where it's on for per square foot right now. It has 33,280 square feet.
$30.37.
How much?
$50.37.
Which again, based on what's happened I'm sorry, I'm speaking out of turn.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's at $50.37 is not unreasonable with the market that we've seen in industrial properties over the past couple of years, 2 or 3 years. So I'm sorry.
We're doing just this one half of the building, right? Because it's because the property line.
Yes, ma'am. This particular building has 33,280 square feet, and
But they both have the same street address, right?
No, they have two. There's two addresses. It's Suite A and Suite B.
Well,
Yeah,
sweet.
yeah. Sorry.
No, okay. I had A on this one, Unit A. I didn't have Unit B on the other one. Which number is B? Is B?
This side
185.
Okay,
is A,
Unit B.
the
Okay.
one we're talking about now.
Yeah, I didn't put B on the other one. Okay.
But last year it was on for 80.
921, 245.
Had it on for 84 or 843.
I showed the 921, 245
Okay.
as well. The 80,000, the 807,000 was in 2021.
Okay, and maybe on the wrong ones. Okay.
And so your contention is the same on this one, that you didn't like the assessor's comps because they weren't, and you had other comps that you thought were probably better.
Well, sure. And again, if our sale had been in 22 and there had been some change in the market appreciably that you could point to in the area, then I'd have a pretty hard time arguing it. But at the end of the day, we wrote a check believing that the building was in good working order for $3.5 million. That is the value of the property. It's that simple. And in our view, it's that simple. Why in the world would we have an assessed value starting at $6 million for something that we paid $3.5 million for, but then agree to an assessed value of 4.4 and change when we wrote a check for $3.5 million?
Cause you dumb.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
No,
yeah. Unfortunately, we didn't, and we're paying for that now a little bit, but.
with the roof property.
Sure, but I do not know how many industrial buildings, you folks get into, or Steve in his office actually get inside of. They are all incredibly different, and
Yeah.
the values associated with determining them have everything to do with power and ceiling height and occupant and creditworthiness of the tenant and length of the lease and how much parking area and how big the truck court is. And I mean, you can go on and on and on. Location, proximity.
But we do sales more than income on these, and when they're all over the county,
Well, if you're going to use sales more than income, then you've got to be extraordinarily
no,
careful.
experience it.
Oh, okay.
Will say is that we do look at income, and we have
Right.
modeled these with income
Right.
values over the past couple of years.
Right.
So we use both, is all I'm trying to say.
Right. Okay.
Might I ask a question?
Oh, sure. And now, because I want to know how you.
Could
Wait, let me ask this question. If I add up his 6 properties, how close to 3.5 am I? I mean, that's still, I'm not going to be close to 3.5. That's you that took the 3.5 and divided it up. That's not what they did, right?
Well, to be clear, I used 3.2. Yeah, I didn't use 3.5. I used 3.2 because I'm taking the roof into account. But
I thought
you are
just
correct.
finished one building.
all I did was take the 3.2 and reasonably apportion it amongst what we paid 3.5 for.
Okay, so I'm gonna approximate
And if
40.
you add the,
That's basically 300,000. If I put 3 and 4 together, I have about 300,000. And then I'm gonna put 2 on top of that, 21. That's 2.4.
Eleanor, if you add all the
Oh,
count,
yes.
if you add all the
Yeah,
assessors
count
property together, it's 4.498 million.
4.49.
4,498,131.
Say it one more time.
4,498,131.
So we are 1.6 apart. Okay. But Steve, I'm gonna,
Steve had a question or a
well, I
statement.
was gonna hear from him, period. Cause I haven't got in my head. So the $50.37 a square foot is how we get to the 1.676.
on the property currently
Yes.
being discussed, yes.
488.
No, 488.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So we do have a copy of the estimate for roof construction. That's what this is, right?
That's to repairs. That's
Roof
just
repair.
to basically stabilize it because it's in deficient condition and causing problems.
So is this the appraisal report?
It is.
Does the board want to accept that?
Yeah. Okay, that's what you said you did not have.
Correct.
No, I'll just take his word for it.
I just wanted you to have a copy of it, Steve. That's just for you. I mean,
Okay, so did you, okay, you knew there was one, but he didn't give it to you, is that my understanding?
That's my
Okay.
understanding, yes.
it isn't that I didn't give it. I said we have an appraisal that this
Right.
purchase price was based on.
Yes.
And what was told at the informal hearing was different. I have comps and we have our value and you'll get our notice. And I said, can I see your comps? And he said, I'll send them with my notice.
You didn't see them?
I did not see them until I received the notice of the valuation. Left me to appeal to you guys.
So the question is, do we want to allow this into evidence or not?
What do you guys think?
I'd like to know how Steve feels about it.
I would like to have a chance to review it, yes.
Okay,
So,
So you'd prefer that we not consider it?
no, I prefer that we do.
We do consider it.
If you give me a chance to take a look at it for
Yes,
a day, yes.
Yes.
All I'm saying is that, maybe there's something there that we will agree to.
okay.
And I'm happy to, I just printed the top copy, which gives the value, but I'm happy to email you a complete copy of the appraisal.
Oh, okay, so there is more.
Yeah, that's 90 pages, but that's just the appraisal that gives the amount of the valuation. It's a cover letter.
Okay, so but we're gonna make our decision on Friday, so if you wanna.
Wednesday.
Wednesday, so,
Yeah, I'm kind of locked out of my computer anyway, so it'll give me I'll have a chance to look it
so am
over.
I not, you asking me to leave this hearing open?
Just give me a day to review it. If you can send it over to me today.
If we left it open, then he could testify and change his value if
Okay.
he wanted to at that point. Is that correct?
That's my.
Okay. We
I just.
You agree to that?
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay, all right, we will. So
it
we
can't
will,
hurt you.
we
No, I mean-
will leave, we're gonna finish the agenda, but by leaving open, I will not close the hearing on 488.
Okay.
Otherwise, you know, you're gonna get your notice when we make our decision on Wednesday.
Sure.
Okay, so it was nice to meet you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Steve.
Mr. Cravens,
We'll probably see you again.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, just,
hopefully we can work together again.
now you know I gotta ask why your last name is Cravens. Are you related to Miss Cravens that owned the house on 18th?
No,
Okay.
I get that question a fair amount, but no.
Benita.
Anita, mm-hmm.
Okay.
You do have my email address, correct?
I'm almost positive I do, but out of an abundance of caution.
Me and I'll forward it to you.
Okay, just send it to the
Yeah,
hearing.
you'll send it to
You got
you.
Yep, I'll do that. It's a big file. I'll send it to you.
We get a few of them.
I bet you do.
Okay, so tomorrow.
All good?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank
Sure.
you.
So I have a question about tomorrow. There's on the agenda, there were 8. Did Dunbar get dropped?
Yeah, you mentioned already we're missing the last one on the
Oh,
agenda.
no, I'll send it. Oh, it's still on?
Yes.
It was on last year, if I'm not mistaken. It was Dunbar. I used to vote they made to turn it into a senior retirement village. Okay, anything further from the assessor?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so when you come tomorrow, you tell us what you think about this before I close the hearing. So I didn't close the hearing on 488.
Can I have till Wednesday?
Wednesday's decision day.
Wednesday's decision day, okay, so you'd like to have, yeah, okay. Okay, so
All right.
hopefully, if you sent it to me, I'll review it.
Okay. Okay. We ready to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excise at 9.